Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here today. I'm here to introduce Gig App, a platform that's transforming the gig economy. In the next few minutes, I'll show you how we're creating a revolutionary marketplace that connects university students and alumni within their university networks. Let's talk about the problem we're solving. The gig economy is growing, but existing platforms like TaskRabbit, Handshake, Fiverr, Facebook Jobs, and Craigslist all share one major flaw. They don't solve the trust problem. Businesses and individuals need flexible short term help, but hiring strangers online is risky. Workers worry about unreliable pay. In fact, a 2022 survey found that 62% of gig workers in New York had experienced not getting paid after completing a job. Meanwhile, employers stress over unvetted gig workers who might underdeliver. Even worse, traditional gig platforms treat every user as a faceless profile. There's truly no way to know if you're hiring someone from your own community or school. Or as one student employer told us during beta testing, I'd rather hire someone from my university. At least there's accountability if something goes wrong. On the upper left here, we have a visual of what it looks like going through the process of hiring a gig worker online. It takes way too much time and effort, and it's very confusing. In contrast, Gig App basically cuts that time in half to find and hire a gig worker. Soon, saying I found them on the Gig App will mean more than just a hire. It will mean a trusted, hassle-free experience. Again, this is where the gig app comes in. We fix the gig economy's biggest problem, lack of trust. By connecting users exclusively with verified students and alumni from their own university networks, our solution delivers four key benefits. First off, no more strangers. You get to work with people you have an actual connection to. Secondly, safer hiring. Our built-in verification system fosters safer online hiring. And third, strong local connections. You get the opportunity to connect with people in your own community. And fourth, finally, community support. You get to help your community while you're getting work done. Let me introduce the team. I'm Emanuel Margarito Colchado, founder and CEO of GigApp. I bring entrepreneurial expertise from successfully launching multiple ventures since 2019, including a Washington-based food company that still runs today and demonstrates my capabilities in operations management and capital allocation. For the businesses I've built, I've secured about $10,000 in competitive grant funding in the past and built profitable businesses through customer-focused iteration. Supporting me is a very strong advisory board with specialized expertise. Chris Goldman, specialist with more than 5 years of experience in digital customer acquisition. Tag McMurray, who brings financial expertise from his experience as a multi-unit real estate owner and investor. And John Alaga, a senior software engineer with over 10 years of experience in scalable app architecture. Together, we have the skills necessary and experience to make GigApp a success. Like I said, the market opportunity here is competitive but big. Handshake, which would be considered our biggest direct competitor, was able to capture 8% of the market within the first 5 years. TaskRabbit, which could be considered both direct and indirect because they don't focus on school networks, reached about 3% of the market within the first 5 years. And Fiverr, who could be considered an indirect competitor because they have no relations to schools, gained only about 2% of the market in the first 5 years. For other competitors like Facebook Jobs and Craigslist Jobs, each only captured about 1% of the market within the first 5 years. Like I said, the market is booming. 38% of the current US workforce now participates in gig work, and 1 in 10 workers globally rely on gig work as their primary income. Gen Z and millennials dominate this market, making up 60% of gig workers, which signals long-term industry staying power. Our target demographic shows particularly strong potential. A recent study showed that 70% of recent college graduates and students engage in some type of gig work. With over 20 million university students in the US and over 100 million alumni, our immediate addressable market is substantial, and business adaptation to gig work is accelerating. 89% of S&P 500 companies reported using gig workers or contractors of some type. This convergence of macroeconomic trends and demographic behaviors creates a unique opportunity for us to establish market leadership. Looking at our competitive landscape, while general gig platforms like Handshake, Fiverr, and TaskRabbit dominate the broader market, they failed to address the critical trust and community issues. And as you can see in this comparison table, GigApp stands out with our verified identity system, academic verification, community-based approach, institutional partnerships, and accountability. None of our competitors can offer this complete package. Now, the biggest competitor, like I said, is Handshake, but their focus is not on gig jobs. It's on internships and traditional 9 to 5 jobs, including the fact that there's no connection between gig worker and gig employer. We're positioning GigApp not just as another gig platform, but as a trusted marketplace for academic communities, a space competitors cannot effectively replicate. We plan to gain market dominance primarily due to our lower transaction fees and lower job prices. For example, Uber might charge you up to $200 for a ride to the airport, while a gig worker on the gig app could do it for a lower price or even half. This makes it a lucrative opportunity for market dominance. Our go-to-market strategy follows as a 3-phase approach that ensures sustainable growth with continuous validation. In phase 1, which will be our Washington State pilot phase, we'll target over 10,000 users across major universities like UW, WSU, Seattle University, and including targeting other colleges around, such as community colleges. Our tactics include recruiting on-campus ambassadors, such as ASB presidents, establishing university career center partnerships, and implementing zero-commission referral campaigns, such as you refer a friend and you and your buddy get 0 commissions for the first 3 months, and hosting campus activation events. We want to establish a strong presence locally, as studies have shown that recommendations from people you know remain more credible than random ads you see online. Our key performance indicators include reaching 5,000 MAUs, or monthly active users, and 2,000 completed transactions. This means roughly reaching 25% of all students inside of Washington State. In phase 2, we plan to expand nationally to high-density campuses across the U.S. We'll implement API integration with existing campus job boards, deploy regional sales teams, and launch an alumni outreach campaign, and establish our presence in at least 35 different universities. In phase 3, we'll focus on performance marketing and global scaling, with targeted advertising on social media platforms like Instagram, and an expanded referral program like the one in our Washington State pilot. Globally, we want to grow in markets similar to ours, like Canada, the UK, and Australia. The gig app will monetize through 2 scalable revenue streams. First, through transaction fees, we'll be charging a 12.5 commission on all digital payments through the app, which is competitive with other gig platforms. For cash payments, that's right, you heard it. We'll be offering cash payments. We'll charge a flat $5 fee before workers can access cash-paying jobs. Our second source of revenue will come through targeted advertising. We'll partner with gig economy brands like Uber and DoorDash at a rate of $100 per 1,000 MAUs. We reach this rate based on the nature of our audience. They're looking to do gig jobs to make money, making our business niche for advertisements like companies like DoorDash and Uber. This dual revenue approach provides stable income while allowing us to keep fees reasonable for our users. And here in the background is an actual screenshot of the website I've been developing. Looking at our 5-year financial projections, we anticipate reaching profitability in year 4. We project total revenue from growing from $75,000 in the first year to over $7.8 million by year 5. As you can see on our financial statements, we plan to lower initial customer acquisition cost while raising our revenue per customer. We arrived at this projection by assuming gig jobs to be in the range of $40 to $50 each, which is a conservative estimate, but given these numbers, we expect to capture 0.75% of the total market in 5 years. While the market is competitive, our unique demographic focus makes this a realistic goal within the 5-year projection. Also, we will most likely surpass our financial projections. We have made very meaningful progress. Our website is currently in beta testing among a pool of 10 students, with full completion expected by June of 2025. We're looking forward to presenting our idea at the UW Tacoma 2025 Business Plan Competition, and we will be attending the Show and Career Expo through WSU and Bellevue this May to connect with potential partners. We're also in discussions with AppLovin, a Palo Alto-based app growth platform for possible investor introductions and launch support services. Our timeline shows a transition from website to app development by October of 2025. Now, to accomplish this growth, we're seeking a total of $200,000 in initial investment. This will be allocated across 4 key areas: $80,000 for platform development, $60,000 for marketing and user acquisition, $40,000 for operations and administration, and $20,000 for legal fees. We plan to raise $150,000 through angel investors, cutting at 3 individuals at $50,000 each by August of 2025. The remaining $50,000 will come from bootstrapping efforts. including founder contributions, family and friends, and competition winnings. Our investment repayment plan. Insurance investors receive their money back while maintaining sufficient working capital for continued growth. We project no repayment between the first 2 years, but we plan to start repaying by year 3 and finish repaying from going from year 3 to year 4. You may ask yourself, why are we paying back the investors instead of just trading it for equity? Simply because we want to demonstrate to our angel investors that we can produce revenue and we are legitimate. Now, thank you all for your time today. I'm excited about the potential of GigApp to transform the gig economy, and I welcome your questions about our vision and our strategy and financial projections. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to pause that 15-minute presentation timer and start the 10-minute question and answer round. Go ahead, judges.
I can start off. Awesome. Well, really good presentation. Extremely well spoken. I'm not sure if I'm dating myself here, but I think at the outset, it would be helpful to know what a gig job is. I was like, what's a gig?
Yes. So if I could answer that real quickly, sir. So
yes.
What I'm shooting for is like say, for example, you need help with, I don't know, weeding out your garden, or you need help with moving stuff around. You post it on the gig app, and then a student can do it.
So is a gig like a term of art then, or is it
gig? I mean, gig job and
like a gig,
like a side job.
Okay.
Like a side job.
Everybody inside.
Okay. All right.
Side job.
Like a little gig. I'm gonna do a quick little gig job here. So that's
fine. Oh, okay. Gotcha. I think I don't know. That was like trying to like wrap my mind around it. So one of the things that I see that you're doing here is you're de-escalating risk, just in terms of like, do I trust the people who are actually doing these jobs by routing it through, hey, I'm a Coug, you're a Coug. What's your sort of like, if something does go like a foul and there is risk, how are you handling that? Because people will be looking for you to solve that risk, and if things run afoul, how are you handling that?
Yes, sir. So that's where the accountability comes in. You actually know this person, so you can go ahead and tell them, hey, leave them a bad review. Here, let me go back to my slide here. So you can see they have little reviews on them. So if they do something wrong, if the gig worker or gig employer does something wrong, you can review them on there, and then it lowers the reviews. And of course, you don't want to be doing business with anybody who has low reviews. So that would be the terminology. But in the financial standpoint, like what if they don't end up paying? Well, they're going to end up having to put in their bank information first as a gig employer, right? So just in case if they don't pay them in cash, we're still going to deduct it, and we're still going to make sure that the gig worker gets paid.
Okay. And one sort of other question I had is, after you do like engage someone for like the first time, what prevents them from circumventing like your platform, like, and just saying like, hey, John, I got your cell number, and essentially circumventing like the platform that you have, where you wouldn't get a share of that?
So I actually wouldn't be opposed to that. That's what the application's for, to connect students and connect people. If they want to continue using this, that's awesome. But if not, I feel like maybe sometimes, I don't know if you've seen OfferUp, if you ever used OfferUp, you know how they have messaging on there. So that's what I would essentially allow too, for them to be messaging each other through there. Many times people will say, oh, we'd rather do it on the site, which is something that I'm not too necessarily, not saying that I wouldn't be opposed to, but like, it's fine. That's the goal. Make a connection.
Yeah, I have a question. You have a huge assumption here in differentiating yourself from the competition with the term trust, and I understand that, using the the alumni approach, and you're obviously hiring a gig worker that is from your alma mater. How are you reconciling that with the fact that a lot of people, including those competitive companies you addressed, a lot of people are still making decisions based on price, especially for gig type work? And I like the idea of trust, but I personally am necessarily too concerned about that for a gig job. I've used Fiverr in the past, and for the things that I need to do, I'm very trusting of what they're doing. I've used even Craigslist, and I'm very, I've vetted those people. But how do you reconcile that? I mean, that's a huge, competitive advantage you're citing.
Yeah. So basically, it comes down to those faceless profiles. How long did it take you to find those people on those sites? I'm betting it took you more than 3 to 4 days, or maybe even a week. This way, you're cutting down that time. Let me go back to that slide. I've also hired people on Fiverr, try to get logos done, but like sometimes you have to wait for a response. And if you want a faster delivery, you have to pay for more money. So this is where it comes in, we're literally trimming down that time that it takes to find somebody reliable and trustworthy and get that job done.
Okay, good response. Do you have you guys considered looking at how you focus the type of gig work you're addressing? You're dealing with college students that have hopefully some professional expertise just based on their academic backgrounds. Is there any attempt to look at it from a focus standpoint to kind of narrow the approach so that you can differentiate yourself that way rather than, I need somebody to cut the lawn versus I need someone to develop a Excel file for me?
So I think that's where we're still in the development phase of actually like what we end up where we're trying to come up with is like how do we split it up? Like a tech job versus a labor job versus whatever administrative job or stuff like that. That's where we're probably going to be cutting it up into categories. So therefore, it makes the gig employer effectively more easier to like, oh, I need somebody to cut my lawn. Let me go to the cutting lawn section and let me post it there. Or I need somebody to, I don't know, help me, like you said, create an Excel file. Let me go to the tech support section there. And that's essentially what it would do.
Okay.
Emanuel, really great presentation walking through all of it. I think if you were to take this to any sort of investment group, the first thing a lot of angels or VCs would say is two-sided markets are hard, just because you're solving for two different personas with two maybe different pain points. Thinking through the student aspect, because you mentioned kind of part of what you're thinking about is focusing on students. Is there anything specifically around their pain points where maybe instead of trying to do a two-sided market, you take some of your ideas and focus them a little bit more? I think you mentioned, risk of not being paid as a potential problem. But what are a couple of the things, because you have to build both the demand side and the supply side. So is there anything, if you were to kind of be more targeted with the launch for students, that you would sort of focus on their, like what would be their like top 2 or 3 things you'd want to solve?
So top 3 things I would want to solve, like the inspiration that came from this app itself is because I was a student athlete. So many times I couldn't get a part-time job because I didn't have the time to do it. So essentially what I want to do is make it easier for students for their schedules. You can't, because sometimes our games are Saturdays and Sundays, or sometimes we have a double header. So instead of doing the job, we can't show up and say, hey, I can't come in early, but I can come in late. Many employers don't like that. But hey, I can do a gig job later in the day. That'd be something of an assumption. We're fixing the issues of, oh my gosh, I don't have enough time to do a part-time job, but hey, I can go on this gig app platform and I can do my part-time job. That would take up the money from the part-time jobs. We're trying to, and college students aren't necessarily the richest people ever. So, we're trying to help them out with as much as we can by getting them extra money on the side whenever they can. And to go back to your initial thing, it'd be more like, for like, let's say for an example, we don't have enough jobs on there. Well, that's why we have advertisements from DoorDash and Uber. Hey, I didn't find anything, but look, there's an advertisement for DoorDash, or there's an advertisement for another gig platform. They could easily go look on that just in case if we don't have anything. Although it does sound bad, like, oh, we're gonna give them up to somebody else, but we want them to essentially be making money. Does that make sense, sir?
Yeah, it does. And I appreciate you walking through it. So I think you highlighted some things as you're thinking through, you go through the product development, a couple of things you could maybe focus on for initial traction. But a little bit of the feedback is just two-sided markets are difficult. And then you also mentioned partnerships. So in a way, you're kind of creating 3 different relationships that you have to manage. So just something to think about. But let's work on this.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, let me just piggyback on what Jason said. And I was thinking the same thing. There's a lot here that has to do with resources and partnering, and especially if you're trying to deal with student centers, or what I guess there were centers within the universities. So I think you need to make sure that you're addressing that in terms of where the funds are going to be used, and that has this is strictly on the issue of having the appropriate team members. So there's a partnering It's very important. And the last thing I'll say as an investor, I would say that you're probably shooting a little low for 0.75% of the market.
It is very low. It's very conservative. Like I said, we're most likely going to be, when we do end up launching, we're most likely going to be breaking that barrier. So it was just very conservative numbers. I wanted to keep them, setting the bar low and then being able to break that bar and raise it a little bit more each time.
Yeah, well, if you're going to do that in front of an investor, then be confident about it and support it based on the presentation that you're giving the market and the execution to get to that market.
Yes, sir.
But overall, I thought it was a good, very good presentation.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Perfect. We have about 20 seconds left. If there's any last minute comments, questions, anything we'd like to say.
Oh, I was just going to say congrats. It sounds like you started a business in the past. So
Yes, sir. I've been in business. I like to say I've been a door-to-door salesman since I was about 12 years old. I actually was a translator for my mom for a house cleaning business. So you can imagine me, a little kid, 12 years old, going from door to door and translating. So I do have it.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. That is officially the end of question and answer time. Thank you for your time today, and you're free to leave the call.
Really nice job. Thank you.
Thank you.